played behind closed doors. Well, why did this happen? Well, Mediama SC's game against Accra Hearts of Oak saw a similar problem of fans, some of whom were seen wearing their masks, but were too close for comfort. Now, only 10 management members, by the sanctions that have been given by the FA, only 10 management members of Mediama SC will be allowed into the stadium, and 10 management members for their away clubs during matches at the Takwa Akun Park, where this unfortunate, incident took place. Now, there are some immediate actions that have also been taken by the GFA after Mediama's breach of the COVID-19 protocols. Now, let me go through them before we begin the conversation, the first conversation on the phone lines. Now, the GFA condemns without any reservations the violations of the matchday protocols, lack of social distancing, the number of spectators that took place at the Akun Park in Takwa. Now, the Mediama SC Home Club is immediately referred to the disciplinary committee concerning breaches of the provisions in the approved GFA matchday protocols. The disciplinary committee has been tasked to sit on this matter expeditiously. Now, until the case is fully determined, Mediama SC shall play their home matches behind closed doors at the Akun Park in Takwa. Now, that in playing behind closed doors, only 10 management members of Mediama SC will be allowed into the stadium. 10 management members for away clubs as well. Now, only 10 media persons will be allowed who are accredited duly by the FA, and no other person will be in attendance. Further actions may be taken should there be any further violations of GFA matchday protocols. That all their clubs are to take note and comply strictly with the GFA match day protocols. The GFA wishes to sound a note of caution to all its members, especially Premier League clubs, Division 1 clubs, Women's Premier League clubs, and lower league clubs, as well as all stakeholders, that the association will not hesitate to take any actions to ensure strict adherence to the national COVID-19 protocols, as well as its approved GFA match day protocols. So this is what came in after we saw Mediama SC flout, the rules. Now, we'll be having a major conversation on this one, and of course, we've got a team of guests, some of whom will be joining us remotely, and some of who will be here in the studio as well. Let's just have something final on last week's conversation that was started right here on the show on player, contracts and some of the challenges that confront it as we go season after season in all of our leagues in the country. Now, Hans Mensah Andor was the host for the show last week, and he's joined me on the phone line for more on this subject. Now, Hans, thank you so much for your time.
Hello, Rob. Thank you very much for having me, and welcome
back. Good to be back, and thanks so much for holding the fort 2 weeks running. Now, I'm sure that a lot of things struck you, last week as you listened to the various parties. I mean, representatives of the media, player managers, and agents, and and some of the players themselves on some of the very big, problems that confront them in everyday business. Now, you let me in on some of the things that struck you and some of the things that we may not necessarily take our minds to when it comes to player contracts in all of our leagues.
Now, let me start with conversations that I had with players. I had a conversation and let me mention quickly that a lot of the players that I spoke to didn't want to be named, for obvious reasons. One player, for instance, that I spoke to is owed around 9,000 Ghana cedis, a 3-year contract that he signed with a club somewhere in the Western region, which was supposed to be worth 3,000 Ghana cedis a year. Now, he did 3 years, and not a penny was paid to him. He signed a further 2 years in the hope that over the period that he remained there, he could get the money that he was owed. After the 2 years, still nothing came. He's moved on. I sought to find out why he would not take on the club. Or he makes it clear, he has relationship with people within the club that he doesn't want to strain. He doesn't want to step on people's toes. I again spoke to another player who is currently injured, and he's had to, deal with his own medical bill. First off, he signed a 2-year contract with a Division 1 club, and there was no mention of how much he was going to be earning. The only money he receives from time to time is a winning bonus, and sometimes that in itself is not even paid. And he got injured after the first season, and he's been out for about 8 months. The club hasn't paid a dime in his medical bill. So the sense I got from all the conversations, I had lots of conversations with a lot of players, was that, for a lot of the players, they are eager to play, and so whatever is before them, they don't think too much about it and simply go ahead and sign it. So that is one aspect. Another aspect which I found quite shocking was, a revelation by Yusuf Chipsa to the effect that the situation seemed to be getting worse. When I asked him to give us a sense of where we've come from and where we are, the point he makes is that it was better in the past. It's worse today. He said that in the past, club owners, administrators respected contracts because they value the players, and that today it is not the case. People allow people to sign stuff, and then they do not respect the contract in the end and give players what is due them. Another thing he also mentioned is that sometimes it goes both ways. There are players who also do not respect contract as well. And so for the PFAG, they don't look in one direction. They try to educate the players on the importance of respecting the contract that is signed while holding club, to account. So, fundamentally, this is something that cuts across various levels of Ghana football. It's something that is really happening in the Premier League Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. And it's a major problem that we need to solve if we want to take the local game to the next level now.
I see. Okay, so would also quickly take a listen to some of the submissions that were made, yesterday. But it is alarming to say the least, Hans, that we are living here in 2021. We're supposed to be towing this very new path in the way we do a lot of things when it comes to running our football, and people are not even adhering to basic provisions within contracts. That is such a worrying phenomenon. Let's just quickly take a listen to some of the submissions that were made here yesterday on the show, and then I'll come back to you, Hans, to wrap it up with your comments in suggesting how we can move forward, how realistically we can move forward and achieve better milestones when it comes to the way we are running our football in terms of player contract agreements.
Well, as someone who has worked for protocol, let me say, protocol for a number of years, this doesn't come to me as a surprise at all. And the reason I say it's not a surprise is because protocol buys players on impulse. If it is not Nana Amponsa who has not done it, in the last 10 years, you can pick 3, 4, 5 administrations of protocol which bought players or who bought players that the club did not need. And you see, once you buy more than necessary, once you buy players you don't need, from experience, from a close observation, I have seen that because the club buys players that it practically doesn't need, it gets to a point where paying these players becomes difficult. It gets to a point where fulfilling your part of the bargain, that is paying, for instance, their signing on fees, becomes a problem because, I don't want to pick on any player, but take a player like Aiku, for instance. How many matches did he play for Protocol? I can count on my fingertips. So for a player like that, once you're not able to tell what his contribution to the club was, it becomes difficult in reality, living by that obligation that, look, you signed him and you must pay him. Protocol's problem has simply got to do with not having a clearly defined recruitment policy which tells you which players we should go in for, which players we shouldn't go for, How many of these players are really relevant to the cause of the club? How are we going to pay these players? That's why, for instance, I was happy when Nanaya came. He said, I'm going to stick to this number of players. It won't be more than 30 players. And once you have this in mind, you must have a plan how to pay them, how to honor any financial obligations to them. If clubs are not able to do this, then there's going to be what has happened. I have heard people say a whole lot. Look, if you have an agent who is smart, like Chipsa, who I'm told is managing these players, you will always get clubs having to cough out that amount of money Kotoko is supposed to pay.
Interesting stuff there. Contracts are entered into, and along the way, we're not able to see, things done properly and people, adhering, especially when it comes to fulfilling the financial aspect of these contracts. Let's quickly do an update from the English Premier League, where Aston Villa have gone one goal up against Arsenal, who are fielding Thomas Partey in the starting lineup. So it's Aston Villa 1, Arsenal 0. It's just under 3 minutes played so far in the first half. Let's get back, there to Hans on the phone line. Hans, I mean, you were here. You heard clearly what Jerome Otri shared with us. The kinds of thoughts that he shared, and so there are smart, smart agents. They are going in. They are getting these contracts, these very juicy contracts in quotes. And at the end of the day, clubs are not able to pay. And it looks like we're just running around in circles.
Absolutely. I mean, with all the conversations that we had, the sense I got was that it's almost like a culture within Ghana football. It's the norm. It's, something that has become quite normal. The clubs will sign players to contracts and not respect those contracts. And there's nothing the players can do about it, or, 99.9% of the time the players do not take them on. So it's a norm, it's a culture within Ghana football. And I think that if we say we want to develop the local game, if we say we want to have a professional league, there has to be a shift from that culture. I don't think that in terms of building, developing the Ghanaian top flight, especially to the levels that we want to see it bodes well for our football. We want to again attract some of the top talents, within the sub-region and even outside the West African sub-region. It doesn't communicate the right things if you are not respecting contracts, because we've had some top players within the sub-region coming to grace our local league. Case in point is Ahmed Toure, who has been in and out of Ghana several times. If his contract is not respected and he goes back to his country and he hears that a young player has been linked to After Foko or Asante Kotoko, and very often as young players do, he comes to seek the advice of this player. What is he going to tell that young player? And the trend these days is that if you look at all the top leagues worldwide, I'm not talking, just in Africa or worldwide. Look at the Premier League. Look, you have top foreign players making the Premier League team. Look at the Egyptian League. You've got top foreign players. Our own John Henry plays in the Egyptian League. You go to the Chinese League. It's foreigners who have made the Chinese League what it is. And so it's important that we send the right message across. Respecting contracts, it's quite basic. And it baffles me that in this day and age, clubs will find it normal that they will sign contracts with players and not respect the contract. And you're talking about club football administrators who have been there, done it, seen it, gone to other places, see the best practices, and they still find it absolutely normal. Again, for the players. I have the player question. Why didn't you seek legal advice when a document was put before you signed? Or you say she didn't see the need. And so a lot of education has to go on the part of the players as well for them to understand. So most of our players don't even understand that they are professionals. on them without knowing what it actually is. They don't know that this is their job. I was telling the boy I spoke to who is owed 9,000 by a club in the Western region that, look, you're a professional player. You are what? About 23 years. At best, you have about 10 years. That is if you are lucky. You are going to retire in the next 10 years and you have nothing to show for your career. The same people that you don't want to take on are going to look at you and say you did nothing better with your life. And so it's important for players to understand that when they sign contracts, they have to hold a class to those contracts. That is where it has to begin from. It started with 4 players at Asante Kotoko, taking on a giant of Ghanaian football like Kotoko and winning. And I hope that it's going to give other players in the Premier League, in the lower divisions, that confidence to be able to take on clubs. Because it is your job. You work and you have got to be paid for it. We look at the quality of football, being displayed in our Premier League, and sometimes you wonder. You're looking at players who haven't been paid for months. Some have gone a couple of years without taking salaries. I know of a player who was owned by a club and he was being, evicted from a single room apartment he was occupying. So the stories are many. One, there's an unwillingness on the part of clubs to respect contract. Two, there's an unwillingness on the part of players to take clubs on when they don't respect contract. And on both sides, things have got to change now. Otherwise, we'll keep talking about building the local game, and that's exactly what is going to remain. Talk and nothing more.
Now, do we also want to consider the bit where we cut down a bit on the figures that are negotiated, considering the fact that we have recorded a certain trajectory of, big figures being agreed on and the one party or the other not being able to make good payments?
So here's what I also gathered. There are clubs in this country who get on the internet, get a template for a player contract. Sometimes don't even look at the figures, print it out and give it to players time because they are required by the club licensing system or regime to provide contract for players. And so on the part of the club themselves, they don't even know the details of what they put before the players sign. They just want a contract, a paper document, so that the players, registration can go through. These are things that are happening. Of course, common sense dictates that you have got to look at the general football economy. You have to look at your finances as a club, and based on that, be able to negotiate terms with the player. But when you have a club signing a player for 3,000 Ghana cedis a year, now 3,000 Ghana cedis a year, a 3-year contract, which is 9,000 in total, and the player not getting a penny, then we are heading for very dangerous times. I cannot find a justification how a club, a professional club, cannot pay a player 3,000 Ghana cedis for a 12-month period. Assuming you are paying the player even 200 Ghana cedis or 500 Ghana cedis or 300, whatever, a month. You should be able to meet that 3,000 Ghana cedis, within that 12-month period. But to decide that you are just not going to pay a dime, that's a no-no. So yes, we have to look at the general football economy as common sense would dictate. You have to look at your club finances as common sense dictates, and based on that, negotiate terms. Because you see, you cannot give what you don't have. You simply cannot give what you do not have. But this is happening because, like I said, it is the norm. And so even when they know that they cannot pay, 3,000 Ghana cedis a year, they still go ahead and sign these contracts.
Well, I guess that this is a conversation that we need to expand, and of course this will be on the same platforms, but obviously on another date. Let's just hope that those who have to listen, and everybody becomes a little more cautious. And in terms of these players and their level of awareness, it's not just our football. Look, it cuts across our sport, Hans. And there are things happening in boxing, as you may be well aware of. There are things happening
Absolutely.
in other sports as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that generally, sportsmen in this country need to be made aware of their rights. Look, it's also fit into a certain culture in this country where the elderly person is always right. We've had a situation where female footballers who played for the national team have taken on the establishment, and we know some of them have become victims. Where is Mercy Mouse? Where is Mercy Mouse? She captained the Black Princesses to the All Africa Games. And they achieved success. They came back, what was all of them was demanded today. Where is Mercy Mouse? I know people who have had conversations with her and some of the things that you hear. But the bottom line is that she's become a victim. She's been victimized because she demanded what was due her. And that, for me, is a problem. A lot of these players are scared to stand up for themselves because they know that their careers will more or less be over. And so, we need to make them understand that this is their career. They are right. We need a context of whatever contract that they sign. And they are right to demand it. We should conscientize them and also make club administrators, sports administrators in this country aware. I come to understand that when people demand what is due them, they've done nothing wrong. And there is no need to victimize them. It is important. We have to let them understand it's become important that within the context of developing the local game, local sport, contracts must be respected. It's a no-brainer. When you sign contract, you have to respect it. I will back any player from here to hell who will take on a club, a sports body in demand of what is due them. We have to back them up. There simply has to be a difference. It's gone on for far too long. Some of us experienced it, when we were young. We probably didn't understand it. We didn't demand those rights. But we've grown to come to understand certain things, and we need to help the younger ones to demand what is due them. Class, sports administrators, football administrators must respect contracts. It's basic. If we want to develop the local game, if we want to develop local sports, let us respect contracts. Let's not even push sportsmen, footballers, to the point where they have to take people to court. It doesn't speak well of us. It's 2021. There has to be a different age now.
Thank you very much, Hans Mensah Andor, and great points you've made there. When people demand what is due them, they have done nothing wrong. The words of Hans Mensah Andor, anchor and host of Fan Zone on the Joy News channel every weekday at 10:30 p.m. Hans, you have a safe drive, and I'll catch you later on.
Thank you very much, Matt. Have a good one.
Thank you. Hans Mensah Andor there with thoughts on the subject that was discussed last week, which required that we stretch a little more because there are many other thoughts that are coming in. And this issue of contracts and contractual agreements obviously cuts across, and it's not only football. So we have to know that these things are happening in all other disciplines. I could give you loads and loads of examples in boxing, and that's why you'd also have to read an article I've put together on boxing, specifically on Duke Micah, who recently lost out on a world title opportunity on the Joy. My Joy Online page on the sports page. So many stories there. We're also looking ahead to the match weekend as well with some analysis and some figures. So you always have to stay with us online, on radio, and on television. So as I mentioned, we are having a COVID show today, a COVID-related show today, and we're asking ourselves, how well are our clubs and our fans dealing with the management of COVID-19 and, all of the safety protocols that are supposed to be instituted? What are the challenges they are facing? Do they have any challenges at all? Why are we seeing fans, crowd at match centers after all of the very worrying statistics that are placed before us every other weekend on national television? What is the problem? How do we move from here? What are the realistic challenges that they're facing? You send in your messages as well. If you've been to a match center, if you've been part of the 25% of fans who have been allowed into a match center, tell me what your general experience has been. Tell me what you've seen on television as well. And we'll be having a wonderful conversation, I trust, between now and the top of the hour, 2 p.m. Let's take a message, and after that, we resume with our guest right here on the Joy Sports Link on Joy 99.7 FM. My name is Nathaniel Atto.
Chances of winning big. So visit our website betborough.com.gh. Sign up and enjoy this amazing offer today. BetBorough Ghana, be a player, not a viewer. Please gamble responsibly for over 18s and above only.
All right, thank you very much for staying here with us on the Joy Sports Link on Joy 99.7 FM. Now, joining us remotely are Dr. Prince Pambo, who is a member of the medical committee of the Confederation of African Football. Now, he is on a special assignment at the ongoing Championship for African Nations, the CHAN tournament, and he is in charge of COVID management for the tournament. He's joining us remotely, and of course, he has work to do later today as he oversees the game between Cameroon and Guinea in the third place. After that, we are also going to have the final between defending champions Morocco and Mali as well. Also joining us is a former communications, officer for the National Circles Council Greater Accra unit, Mr. Michael Nkansa. Now he has thoughts. His club has been involved in the U-turn of events, and he has thoughts as well. Now within club administration as well, we have one more functionary, and that is the PR and Protocol and Safety Officer of Accra Great Olympics, Emmanuel Saint Osei. He's here with me in studio and has a wonderful blue and white Great Olympics jersey. He's wearing it for obvious reasons, and I'm sure most of you who are monitoring us on social media will see that on My Joy Online TV. Let's begin the conversation with Dr. Prince Pambo, who is joining us via Zoom. Doc, thank you so much for your time, and how is it going out there in Cameroon? Hello, Doc.
I guess you can hear me.
Very well. I can hear you loud and clear.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Great. Sure. Thanks so much for having me on your show. A very well listened to show. Yes. So Cameroon, it's all good here. We've gone through a good tournament. Just 2 more games to go, and it's been a beautiful morning into the afternoon here from Cameroon.
Now, I'm very sure that while you are there working, we'll be coming to that and what you've been doing there and how it has gone and how realistic it is to just put all of these measures in place and have them adhered to. Now, you were in the thick of the whole testing procedure, instituting of these measures and all of that, and you've been seeing the figures at close range because you are within it. Now, I'm sure that you've been monitoring what's been going on back here at home, where some match centers have fans, they have fans who are going to the stadia and are just sitting together as if nothing is happening, and some of whom are not even wearing masks and all of that. Yes, Doc.
Hello?
Please. Yeah, Doc. Please go ahead. We're listening to you.
Right. So, Nat, I think averagely Ghana is recording about 700 COVID cases on daily basis. And I think we've just had some latest reports coming from the sequencing center at the University of Ghana, also telling us that close to 90% of the cases in the country are probably the UK variant of the virus. And this particular variant, it's over 60% more transmissible than the original COVID variant we've had for the year 2020. So what it simply means is that compared to the original variant of COVID we had in 2020, the new variant, which is now driving about 90% of the cases in the country, you stand 60% more chance of giving it to another person compared to the previous. That is really a serious matter for us to think. And I feel, I mean, we're talking sports, we're talking about people getting crowded at the stadium, we're talking about people who want to be reminded that they should wear their. I mean, I feel this whole COVID fight has now gotten to the point of individuals just learning how to be responsible. And if for any reason people are not learning to be responsible, then that is when authorities will begin to step in. So I feel, yes, government has given us an opportunity of a 25% stadium capacity. I think enforcement of the protocols for people to follow them, it's a bit relaxed. And if authorities who are responsible for the various stadia, and I think this comes to the doorsteps of the National Sports Authority and the various clubs who play home, should just ensure that people would adhere to these protocols. If not, we will just end up forcing government to pull the trigger again and say, hey, no fans at the stadium. That might probably save us a lot.
It must also be very worrying to note that one of the triggers, I mean, we have placed in our actions and in the actions of the fans in the last few weeks, they are placing football as a breeding ground for the spread of the breeding ground for COVID-19.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a football person, and I've always said this, and I'm sure I've said it on your show. I earn money from football and all that. I've watched some of the games. Nobody can be blamed if the person says that a few of our games in recent times would fit into the description of what we call super spreader events. All right. So, I mean, I've been out of country for probably a month now, but I've seen all the games, on WhatsApp and all that. And if really those are things that happen, then of course, those were obviously super spreader events. And I'm sure the task force and the people mandated to help us all fight COVID are watching. Yes, people advance all sort of arguments that, yes, we've had bigger super spreader events. The elections 2020 was a massive super spreader event. The Christmas we all celebrated in December was a massive super spreader event. Inaugurations were massive super spreader events. Combative issues and fights in Parliament on the floor are super spreader events. Football things, super spreader events. We've had mega funerals in December and the beginning of the year, January, super spreader events. So it's unfortunate to single out football, but yes, I understand your show is a sports show, and we admit that some games we've had in recent times can be classified as super spreader events.
Unfortunate stuff there. Now, coming to the practicality of it, take us through the very basic steps. I mean, when someone enters a match center, and I'm going to pose that question to the PRO of the Sports Authority in a bit. He'll be joining us via the phone as well. But, I mean, what is a regular fan going to the stadium who is part of this 25% allowed expected to do when they get there by what has been by the directives that have been given for safety?
Thank you very much, Nat. I'm not sure you actually want me to speak to the Ghana Premier League 25% and what is happening there, because I would not be an authority in that. I probably could be telling you what I expect to be done, But as to what is being done or what they want to do, I wouldn't be in the position to do that because I am not mandated to do that. And I really don't know whether there was any planning to it. But I can tell you what is expected to be done and what is happening here in Cameroon, because it's also the same 25% bit. So if you're happy, we can proceed along those
Very
lines.
well. So the CHAN tournament has been successful so far. We've seen wonderful action from players who play on the continent. Wonderful goals by every stretch of imagination, which whets everybody's appetite as well for the main, Africa Cup of Nations tournament, which comes off later. But how smooth has it been implementing these at a tournament, which is the very first major event put together by the Confederation of African Football since COVID struck, in a lot of countries on the African continent?
Yeah. So again, the planning and the success started from planning, if I should use the word. So we had to put together a very robust protocols, which one might think will be difficult to implement or follow. But since we put it together and had discussions with those who are going to host the tournament, we came to the agreement that this was something doable. Now, and whatever I'm going to talk about are things we expect to be happening back home in our league, because they are practicable and they can be done. So first of all, it starts with the preparations of the various teams. Now, every team or country that had to come to this tournament, before you could even enter the country Cameroon, you needed to be coming from your country with a negative PCR result, COVID result. So if you go to the airport in Cameroon, on arrival, they will check whether you had a negative PCR result. Aside that, you are also tested on arrival, just as we did in Ghana. We do in Ghana. Then you are allowed to come into the bubble, sort of the various hotels where we keep the teams. We have created that bubble scenario. So we make sure that a positive case does not go in. So that is how we start. So if I should bring it back home, then that's where we started preaching that the various clubs, all right, on their own, the FA, the Premier League board, all right, should ensure that either on weekly basis, teams are testing during their training before they even come and want to play. That is the starting point. Then whilst teams are here in Cameroon, 48 hours before every match, 48 hours before every match, before you can be part of the game, be it a CAF officer, be a team delegate member, coaching staff, technical staff, players, ball boys, volunteers, LOC members, every single person is tested for COVID-19 before 48 hours before a game. 24 hours after that, you receive your results. That means that all results come in 24 hours before the game. All right. Then that is how it goes. That is for the main actors of the game. Then for the fans, okay, who are not necessarily testing, the tickets which are being issued alone would ensure some form of social distancing. So if they are selling a ticket for seat number 8, obviously the next seat, which will be 9 and 10, will not be sold. So it's moving to probably seat number 11. So you will see that happening. And once people are coming to the stadium, there are stewards all over the stadium, and you cannot even get to the entrance of the stadium if you do not have your mask on, and that will be inspected. I mean, I think Cameroon is largely francophone and they are very obedient. I mean, the laws work. So you are ushered in, the steward to make sure you go directly and have your seat wherever you are supposed to be seated, all right, and your mask will be on throughout. Yes, there are instances where sometimes you have people pull off the mask just to sip water, and deliberately forget to wear it back. My duty here and the other doctors and the stewards and the LOC doctors will be to keep an eye on everyone, and then people are reminded. The various places where announcements are made, I mean, in the stadium once in a while, they make announcements. Almost every 10, 15 minutes, the announcer keeps reminding people of the need to wear their mask and all that. So these are things that have been put in place, and it has worked so well. Yes, I mean, there've been moments where you've had 1 or 2 people test positive for COVID, and immediately this comes up, the LOC medical team and the CAF medical team will come together, ensure that the person is isolated to the right place, taken care of, retesting done. If you come out negative, you are back to flow. So basically, these are the protocols put in place, and they have worked and worked so well. Like I said, after tonight's game, we have just the final game to do. And up to date, we just had a meeting this morning. We have done 10,000 PCR tests. 10,000 PCR tests from the beginning of the tournament till now. And I think it's been good so far.
Wow, interesting stuff there. So from the account you've given us, it is doable. So Doc, we'll come back to you for more on how we can get this done and how we can make it more effective over here. But let's come back here to Accra and get on the phone lines and speak to Mr. Charles Amofa, who is the PRO of the National Sports Authority. The National Sports Authority is in charge of managing all our major sports infrastructure in the country. Charles, thank you so much for joining us on the Joy Sports Link.
Thank you, Nat, for having me.
Been a while. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, from your end as a facility manager, what would you say has been, the level of effectiveness in ensuring that every single fan who is in there is safe? Obviously, you are renting out your facility to clubs to use, but also being the people who are totally in charge at the helm, there's a certain level of responsibility that lies on your shoulders as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon to your listeners. Let me say, I want to thank the government of the day for, supplying or providing us with the needed PPEs in the various league centers. Before the resumption of the league, the government of the day also did a mass spraying in all the league centers. We did disinfection in all the centers, and then they provided all the centers with PPEs. Here at the Accra Sports Stadium, we have our quota of the PPEs. So on a match day, we ensure that all adhere to these safety protocols that we put in place at the Accra Sports Stadium. Upon entry, you'll be checked. Your temperature will be checked. First and foremost, we will check if you are in face masks. That's okay. That's first step. And then we'll check your body temperature with a temperature gun. If it is okay, then you have to sanitize your hands, wash your hands before you move into the main arena. And with the main arena, we've done markings where to sit and where not to sit. We have 2 chairs in between where, you not sit too close to your colleague, just to ensure social distancing. We've also engaged the services of the military, to support the Ghana Police Service when it comes to law enforcement, arrangements. Anybody who breaches this protocol will have a good day with the law enforcement agent.
Okay, so very well enumerated, very well spelt out. So I'm asking myself, so if all of these are on the books and are supposed to be done every single day, how could we have recorded that unfortunate scene or those unfortunate scenes in the game between, Accra Hearts of Oak and Great Olympics, which was played just a week ago? And I'm sure that these measures you're spelling out have always been there.
Yeah, Nat, you're right. See, these measures have always been there, it's been in place. But on that match day, you can agree with me, that was a local derby. Accra Hearts of Oak, Accra Great Olympics. And the stakes were high. We had lots of fans even outside the stadium. We had 2 of our gates, the locks were were broken. And if it hadn't been the timely intervention of the law enforcement agents on the ground, would have had the ripple effect. It would have been a spillover at the Accra Sports Stadium. So I'll say that day it was unfortunate. The fans, the conduct of the fans is also to be condemned. And we've taken, a cue from that. We've resolved not to, repeat that incident. That thing wouldn't be repeated again.
I want to get something clear here. Now, you mentioned that this is a derby. Now, in security terms, these games are classified, and so obviously, Accra Great Olympics versus Hearts of Oak would have a higher classification than a random game. Okay. So,
yeah, right.
Knowing all of these, shouldn't you have been a little more proactive? Because obviously, once we are all proactive, and once we have our eyes on the ground more, we don't record some of these, and clearly as well. I mean, you had already set out the plans. You already communicated these measures. So then, this shouldn't have happened. I mean, there are a lot of people who look at the scenario and they say that this shouldn't have happened at all.
Yeah, Nat, you're right. You can also agree with me that we were looking at the numbers. We thought 25%, of the full capacity. The security arrangements on that day was, good enough for.
So 25% at the Accra Stadium is 10,000, right?
Yeah, it's 10,000.
Very
but
well.
The FA printed around 9,800 tickets for the match.
Okay, so it's still less than
So
the
it's less.
okay.
Yes.
All right, please go ahead.
So the security arrangement that was made during the pre-match technical meeting, we thought was good enough to be able to contain, any eventuality on that day. But like I said, it was just unfortunate that, we had that spillover on that match day.
Okay. Please just hold on for me. We'll be doing some more along this conversation. Let me now bring in Emmanuel Saint-Osei, who was there. He was there as well. At the game at the Accra Derby. He is the the PR and security officer for Accra Great Olympics. Saint, good to have you here on the show. It's really good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Great. I'm sure you people are still basking in this chain of wins that you've recorded over the period.
We're rather concentrating on the match coming up.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
one we put behind us.
You've put behind you.
Yeah.
Okay, very well. Now, tell me what your experience was when you walked into the Accra Stadium last Saturday.
Well, let me greet all those who are watching and listening to us at this moment. Obviously, Joy is the place to listen or to watch. Like my brother has said, it is true that some PPEs are made available at the stadium, but I think there are a lot more that ought to be done. For instance, if you go to the toilets, it's not anything to write home about, In fact, this week, management of Great Olympics met and thought it wise that probably we have to, bring some ideas that can also help, because this is not an individual affair. It's on all hands on deck thing. If it can affect somebody at the stadium at a point and indirectly be transferred to somebody you may know and it may hit you. All right. So I am of the view that in as much as some PPEs are provided, for instance, Mr. Mofa talks about the hand sanitizers and what have you. It is done at the gate. All right. But I think much work can be done that in between or amongst the spectators, the hand sanitizer, some can be placed at some vantage points within the where the spectators do sit. All right. Now, when people go to the toilet, that is my main concern, and I have been talking about this even before the COVID came. I really don't like the way the toilet facilities at the stadium is been managed. Initially, you go, you see water flowing in and what have you, and don't forget, this COVID thing. One most important thing has to do with water and then what do you call it? Detergents, all right, soaps and what have you.
Sure.
I didn't see any.
Okay.
All right, at the toilets. People go there. So going forward, I am of the view that some people must be stationed. Fine. We as safety and security officers have a duty to perform, but it is not going to be. It's not going to be the job of we being the blessed. For instance, like the home team is tagged as being responsible for everything. I believe on the day, any stakeholder that comes up must play a role. For instance, last match, I would want to mention the particular match. I had to tell some of these paramedics, to even warn some of club officials who were, because it is our match, we may be playing home, but it behoves of everybody at the stadium to educate. Say, my brother, put on your nose mask, put on your nose or mask up, something like that. So going forward, I can agree with Mr. Amufa, but I don't think we got to that point where, if let's say we want to curb this menace, we could have done it very well. Now, talking about spectators, we talk about 10,000. All right. I think during the House of Folk match, that was the first time I saw other gates being opening. They open up the other areas, but I think there should be a careful what they call arrangement in controlling the numbers. Look, supporters are supporters, and we are not in normal times. And once we are not in normal times, we don't have to let what used to happen in the past, go on. If we say we're going to do that, then the unfortunate thing that happened between us and House of Folk will always reoccur. All right. So we're talking about crowd, and let me just drift a bit. May 9th. I just don't want to remember. So let's
want to bring up back sad memories.
Even police who were armed with tear gas or what have you couldn't control. How much more? So it's like I said, it's a collective effort on the part of every stakeholder that is present at the stadium. For us to do education, for us to make sure sanitizers are given intermittently. At the point when you see you touch the rails or what have you, you sanitize yourself. The water must be seen. The water tank or whatever, the vertical bucket and what have you must be visible. All right, must be visible. What we intend doing as Great Olympics is that, as for, in the next game that we go to play in Accra Sports Stadium, we make sure that stewards, all right, will prompt supporters or spectators to do the needful by directing them. For instance, we study you and see that maybe you are touching some what do you call it, material that somebody may also go and touch. We direct you, go back, let's go and wash your hands. It has become a habit now, because like I was telling someone before I got in here, it's better to kind of spend time in utilizing this PPEs rather than get to the ICU where you may not come back.
Yeah.
Right? So,
you hold that point there. We're going to go on Zoom again. We'll pick the thoughts of Dr. Prince Pambo, who will have to run off for the third place game at the Chan tournament. And also, I would also be speaking to Michael Nkansa, who's also reaching us remotely via Zoom as well. Let me just quickly get back to Charles. Charles, what is the level of collaboration between the NSA and clubs when it comes to executing these COVID-19 protocols? And you obviously are having a few challenges with getting resourced from the accounts that the club official is giving us here in the studio.
Yeah, let me say hi to St. my brother, and then let me associate myself with some of the comments he made. With regards to fans, the conduct of fans, I think it's a shared responsibility. We, as the custodians of the facility, we have our role to play. The home teams, security, medicals, all the stakeholders, it's a shared responsibility. We all have a role to play. If we should leave everything for the home team or the NSA and, other stakeholders are not collaborating or are not, cooperating with the NSA, we'll be having these challenges. So it's a shared responsibility. But we've resolved, since that last incident, during the game between us and Accra Great Olympics, we've had several meetings with the clubs. Now, they've also agreed to also support us with stewards. And so if you look at the last game, with Kotoko and its allies, you see that we had stewards in the stands who were helping the law enforcement agents with, arrangements that we put in place. So I would like to say that we all collaborate, we all take the responsibility, and then make sure that we stay safe from this pandemic.
The bit about resourcing, I want you to hammer on that some more. I mean, what is there a challenge? I mean, with resources to get this done on your end?
Well, we have what we need for every match day, but then, like somebody would say, Oliver will always ask for more. If there is any support, with regards to COVID relief fund, yes, we will welcome it. But then, for now, I think we okay with what we have, and we're good to go with every match ahead of us.
What about the arrangements with security? What I know from experience is that the Sports Authority gives the beef up to the security arrangements that are made by individual clubs. That's right.
The Sports Authority, our mandate is to engage, security, agencies, i.e. the police, the fire service, and other security organs that I cannot mention on air. And we also expect, the clubs also have their safety and security officers. And so what we are asking for is collaboration, is cooperation. We should all play our role and then, ensure that, these kind of incidents will not reoccur.
All right. We'll leave it here for now for you. Thank you so much. And we're looking forward to seeing, more improved, arrangements, in the subsequent match days.
Thank you for having me, Nat.
Charles Amofa is the PRO for the National Sports Authority, and he's just joined us here with his thoughts. There's more to do here. We'll be going to Dr. Pambo in a bit. He is there in Cameroon overseeing, the execution of safety protocols for COVID-19, as a member of the Confederation of Africa. As a member of the Confederation of African Football's Medical Committee. Well, so we'll do a message, and after that, we continue with the discussions here. Remember, you can keep your messages coming in. It's 055-11-11997. 055-11-11997. We also need to start tackling the issue of some of our match venues that are not very well aligned with numbering and proper, deduction of numbers when it comes to this 25% allocation to fans. We'll be talking about all of that here on the Joy Sports Link. You don't go anywhere.
BetBoro Ghana, everything not double. BetBoro Ghana is giving all our new customers we sign up 100% cash back in free bets up to 400 CDs. This means whether you spend 1 CD or 100 CDs in bets, we give you that same amount back to make more bets and increase your chances of winning big. So visit our website, betboro.com.gh. Sign up and enjoy this amazing offer today. BetBoro Ghana, be a player, not a viewer. Please gamble responsibly for over 18s and above only.
Still here on the Joy Sports Link on Joy 99.7 FM. We've done some time here. It's about 20 minutes past 1 p.m. In a bit as well, we'll be activating the phone lines, but keep your messages coming in. I'll be sharing them very shortly. 055-11-11997. 055-11-11997. Let's just quickly go back on Zoom and take the final thoughts of Dr. Prince Pambo so we can release him to get to work. Doc, I mean, you've heard all the contributions so far. There's clearly a certain level of inadequacy of some of our agencies in dealing with these issues, and it is the expectation of the populace that for the severity of the effect that COVID-19 is having on us, we shouldn't be having some of these little challenges with getting resourced, especially.
Nat, thank you very much, and all the wonderful Nat. I feel that the most important resource we need is human beings being responsible. I don't think when you talk about fans at the stadium, you're talking about 5-year-olds. You are not talking about 10-year-olds. You are probably not talking about 15-year-olds, right? I mean, we are talking about adults. So I really find it very difficult to even understand that we need to have security to be able to tell somebody to be responsible. So a COVID fund we can come and dump all the COVID fund with the sports authority. We can give all the COVID fund to the home teams. We can build dams around the stadium to have enough water for people to wash hands and do all that. But if the individuals are not responsible, these things won't work. So I would want to tackle that from that point, that the Ghanaian who is listening to your show, first of all, should know that for you to transmit COVID, meaning you catch it first. So one, you will catch it. And the people you are likely to give this COVID to are the people who mean a lot to you, because they are the ones who come close to you. So you take it to your home. And now kids are not spared. The elderly are not spared. So if you have kids, you give it to your kids. If you live with your parents or grandparents, you give it to them. So I just want to genuinely appeal to every Ghanaian listening to us that if you know you probably have a mental problem to the extent that you just cannot find yourself to agree that there's some level of responsibility expected from you, just don't go to the stadium. This is the time we actually need only responsible people, mature people to come to the stadium and watch the games, because we know people are hungry for sports. It's entertainment. It helps us to release stress. It gets people moving. So we don't want the government to come and take away this from us. So we would encourage only responsible people to come to the stadium. I think that's all I would say. I mean, I'm not going to preach Veronica Bucket. I'm not going to preach sanitizer. I'm not going to preach anything. People just have to be responsible. I think that's all I can say.
Doc, well said. And thank you very much. And we're looking forward to having a very exciting game. And all the best to you in your exploits. We'll see you back in Accra.
Thank you very much, and I'll catch you sometime next week.
Sure. Dr. Prince Pambo is a member of the Medical Committee of the Confederation of African Football, and he is on assignment at the ongoing Championship of African Nations, which will wrap up this weekend. He will be in charge of COVID protocols for the third place game between the hosts Cameroon and Guinea. And of course, later on, the final itself comes off. Let's see what will happen in that game. Loads and loads of exciting goals, and I've been very impressed by the way the fans have been comporting themselves as well in line with COVID protocols, and also the quality of goals that are being scored at the Chan tournament. Wonderful. All right, let me come back here into the studio. But before that, however, let me just go to let me get on Zoom again and have a conversation with Michael Nkansa, who's a former communications manager for the National Circles Council, the official fans body of Kumasi Asante Kotoko. Okay, Michael, thank you very much for joining us here on the show. Hope you are doing well.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me on the show. I'm very well. And let me say good afternoon to my brother Sintose and your listeners and viewers.
Very well. I'm sure that you've been monitoring, the discussions that have gone on so far. And you've also monitored what has gone on in our Ghana Premier League. Dr. Prince Pambo is just saying that, look, at this stage, it is just a pure matter of responsibility. Why are our fans, I mean, you are part of the setup, and you've been dealing with them on a daily basis. Why is it that our fans are just being this stubborn?
Well, Mark, thank you very much once again. I think that I largely associate myself with the opinion expressed by Dr. Prince Pambo in respect of the level of responsibility of our supporters and, for that matter, football fans who have the opportunity of visiting the various stadia to watch most of our Premier League matches. I think that we keep day in, day out demonstrating significantly that our supporters need to be educated, our supporters need to be directed. But I believe that, like Dr. Prince Pambo stated, when you go to the stadium, I believe strongly that the number of supporters or the number of fans you count at the various stadia, as far as our local league is concerned, will not be up to 2% of infants. I believe that all of us who mostly take time of our busy schedules to visit the various stadia are people of maturity, and therefore I expected to demonstrate some degree of maturity and some degree of responsiveness in terms of their actions, in terms of their ability and attitude at the various stadia where we find ourselves. In the midst of this pandemic, I believe strongly that the moratorium or the opportunity that have been given to us by government in respect of the 25% entrance is a very good opportunity that all of us as football fans and as football administrators will have to cherish and accept wholeheartedly. We will do ourselves a lot of dishonesty, and we'll do ourselves a lot of damage if we are unable to protect and safeguard this very singular opportunity that the government of the Republic has guaranteed us to enable us have a feel of what makes all of us happy every weekend. In the last 9 months before the year end 2020, I believe that all of us had cause to believe that the absence of football actions had taken some degree of happiness away from us. And it is good that we will have an opportunity and an environment to enable us freely appreciate that form of happiness that we are all yearning for. And for you to be guaranteed that opportunity and displaying some degree of ignorance by virtue of the fact that you are unable, without being directed, to know what exactly is required of you. This sickness or COVID, nobody tells or knows at what spot or at what point one will contract this virus. So at every given opportunity, everybody that you see is a potential carrier. And therefore, the significant part of it is that our supporters who find themselves going to the various stadia must demonstrate high degree of responsibility. The protocols that have been outlined, I had the opportunity to listen to the NSC official who was speaking on the line. I believe that the NSC may be doing what is within their ambit to do to help protect lives and property. But beyond that, we as individuals have our singular responsibility of also ensuring that we also protect ourselves, even when we are not even directed to do so. Now you get to the stadium and water buckets or Veronica buckets are provided at the entrance. Your temperature and everything is checked. You wash your hand, sanitize your hand, and then you gain entry into the stadium. Now, by the time you get into the stadium, a lot of activities may have taken place at the time when you are in the stadium. And that activities that take place when you find yourself within the four corners of the stadium, that activity cannot be directed or controlled by the National Sports Authority. It means that we owe ourselves a very high degree of self-responsibility. And I emphasize on self-responsibility because if you are unable to do what is required of you, your inactions will result in the ultimate negative effect on an individual who, for want of a better word, had demonstrated responsibility just because you have been irresponsible. So there is a very thin line between somebody being responsible and somebody who is not responsible, because the next significant second that an individual demonstrates irresponsibility, it affects the security and safety of a person who has demonstrated responsibility. So we owe ourselves a huge responsibility individually. If I take the critical example of the Hearts of Oak Great Olympics match, yes, of course, football support fans are uncontrollable when goals are scored and the entire environment of the stadium is thrown into ecstasy. I believe strongly that if the NSA, per the statement that I just listened, had done the markings as was being said before the Olympics House of Oak match, then it means that most of the supporters who had the opportunity to be at the Great Olympics House of Oak match demonstrate irresponsibility. So if the NSA is sure that markings were made in every 3 chairs, or in every 4 chairs, there is 2 chairs between the first and the 4th chair. Under what circumstance will 5 people find themselves converging at a place where 4 chairs are supposed to be there when 5 people are standing there? So it means that those 5 people have been irresponsible. And for how long can we continue to always ask policemen and military men to be parading themselves at our various stadia to direct people to be responsible? We cannot continue on that tangent. I think that Nadu and I had some series of engagements on the use of stadium, what we call them, the individuals who always stand at the stadia to watch spectators, in terms of their behavior and everything. We don't normally need police to be doing the work of those people. We don't need the military to be fully armed to scare spectators from misbehaving at the various stadia. I believe strongly that there are other places outside Accra Sports Stadium, outside Sogankope Sports Stadium, outside maybe Liberty or Karela Park. There are places like Doma Ahinkro Park. Now, how are you going to ensure a 25% entry into a Doma Ahinkro Park?
Very good point you've raised here. Very good point you've raised here. And that's, yeah.
Kotoko Doma, Ebiana Stars game. That place, one, there are no demarcated seats available at Doma Park. Even the so-called described as executive arena, where we call the VIP, it's not properly demarcated. So I am just thinking aloud as to how, if one day House of Folk travels to Doma Ahinkro or Kotoko travels to Doma Ahinkro, how we are going to ensure that these demarcations, then unless a week to the game, Abiana Stars engages persons or individuals to transport blocks to the stadium, to erect artificial chairs properly demarcated by the blocks for people to go and sit, so that if at any given point in time somebody is seen beyond a certain radius of a particular block, that person can be picked up by the security agencies and punished. Other than that, I am thinking aloud. There are other places that I will not mention. Now, moving forward, I believe that there is a huge responsibility on all of us as club administrators and as supporters, leaders and supporters as well. Let us keep it in our mind that no matter the level of support and assistance from government, from football officials, from National Sports Authority, and any other person, all of us who have the opportunity to go to the stadium owe ourselves some degree of responsibility to make sure that we exercise some level of maturity in everything that we do. Don't shake hands with anybody. Don't hug anybody. This is not the first time you are going to say that I have not seen Sintose in the stadium, and for that matter, when I meet him at the Accra Sports Stadium, we are going to hug ourselves and be doing all manner of things. No, we are not in the normal times. The times are not normal for us to hug ourselves. So nothing will be taken away from me and him if we don't hug ourselves. Nothing will take away from anybody who fails to shake the hands of the colleague. So I believe that we will continue to speak to conscientize our fans and our supporters. Of course, the best form of happiness, I mean, the best form of reward for a football fan is when his team or the team has scored a goal. I can understand the feeling of every supporter at every stadium where his team or her team has scored a goal. The level of happiness and the level of enthusiasm that takes over your level of thinking. Sometimes you even forget about yourselves and do things that ordinarily you wouldn't have done just because you were happy. But in the midst of the happiness, let us put some measure of how we jubilate in the mid of a goal being scored in favor of our teams, in view of the fact that we put some level of measure on every activity that we demonstrate, either post during or before every league match that we find ourselves in, and including every other place that we find ourselves, not necessarily the sports stadium alone. Other people may also have some form of engagement with other places or with other people in other places before they even walk to the stadium. So by the time the person gets to the entrance of the stadium and the thermometer gun displays that his temperature is 35 or 36 degrees, meanwhile, he has had an encounter with somebody from the Tudu Arena before coming to the stadium. And his temperature may not demonstrate that he's carrying the virus. But ordinarily, he is carrying the virus. So let us all be very responsible by ensuring that the rules, the guidelines, the protocols that have been outlined at the various converging points, we fully respect it. We don't do anything to leave any room for breaches of protocols, which will result ultimately in ensuring that people contract the viruses based on the fact that they have visited places of or places where football matches are being played. So I believe that as we speak, all the other stadia that we can think about, where league matches are played, where Division 1 matches are played, where even women's league matches are played, let us ensure that all this education is carried across all the fans who have or take times to visit the various stadia to watch all these games adequately, prepares their mind to act responsibly. The key word is to act responsibly. You don't need to be directed to be responsible. Responsibility is an obligation. Responsibility is a duty. And for that matter, if you breach your obligation, the breaches resulting in your obligations have their consequences on the life of other people. And so I believe that we should ensure that we uphold and ensure that we protect the gravity of responsibility that has been bestowed on us as individuals anytime we find ourselves in any of our league matches, and ensure that stay away from the spread of COVID-19.
Very well said. And just before you go, brief comments ahead of tomorrow's game. Karela and Asante Kotoko.
Now, that's a very difficult game, I think.
It's not. You don't think, it is going to be a difficult game.
Of course. It's a very difficult game for us. And I believe strongly that Kotoko this season have creditably performed slightly above average when they play away from home. I mean, I am very much convinced and with the belief that with that, information at the back of my mind, I believe that anytime they travel outside our home matches or when they play away from home, the team normally plays better, even when we are unable to score. If you look at the overall performance of the team, it has generally been very, very, very good. I believe strongly also that traveling to the Karela Park, which is more or less a very nice stadium where football can well be appreciated, I believe Kotoko players will be very comfortable playing at the Karela Park and giving Karela players a good run for their money for tomorrow's encounter. I believe also, without forgetting the fact that Karela is a team to watch as far as this season is concerned. I believe that most of their players have played together for some time now, and it has enhanced their degree and level of telepathy and their level of understanding as players. It has also enhanced their cohesion and the way they play. I'm not going to discount the fact that it will be a very difficult match for Asante Kotoko tomorrow, but I am also very, very much convinced that looking at our players and looking at the environment that we find ourselves tomorrow at Akon Park, I am very much convinced that, yes, of course, we will also not be going to the Karela Park with our hands tied at our back to watch them play around us. I am very strongly convinced that tomorrow Johnson Smith will get his access right. The players who have the opportunity, the first 11 players who have the opportunity to be on the field will play to instructions. I am very much convinced also that the boys themselves are very much eager to pick a victory tomorrow from the signals I picked from camp this morning. And it gives me hope and opportunity to believe that tomorrow's game at Akon Park will return from that place, if not with a point, with the 3 maximum points.
To put you at the top of the log.
And put us at the top of the log. That is very, very, very important. And I will also not discount the fact that there are 3 results that are likely to come out of tomorrow's game.
A win.
And that 3 results, no matter what, one will be for us. So I urge our supporters that, irrespective of which of the 3 results that comes to us, we wholeheartedly accept and move forward and build the team towards achieving greater laurels in future. I believe that the team today and the kind of information I have, as at this time that I'm speaking to you, I'm very much convinced that Kotoko's game tomorrow will be a game to watch, and everybody will be surprised to see the scoreline at the Acorn Park tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, Michael, thank you so much, and we wish you well. You could just be, at the top. Thank you so much, Michael Nkansa there, and he is former communications manager for the Circles Council, which is the official supporters body. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Julia Durban, who's doing the listening this afternoon. Dr. Julia Durban, thank you so much for doing the listening. Also, good afternoon to you, Mr. Magnus Rex Dankwa, the Chief Operating Officer for Ghana 2008, that very memorable Africa Cup of Nations tournament. Thank you so much for doing the listening, Mr. Magnus Rex Dankwa. We're building up to your birthday, right? Now, there's a letter here from the Ghana League Clubs Association, and it is congratulating, it's addressed to the CEO of Kumasi Asante Kotoko. Now, it is... So there it is. The heading is congrats for observing COVID protocols. Yes, sir. It is highly gratifying that your club, Asante Kotoko, heeded the admonition from the Football Association regarding the observance of COVID protocols during league matches and ensured that your fans obeyed them in the strictest terms during your league match with Inter Allies at the Accra Stadium last Wednesday. Galka commends Asante Kotoko for living up to the billing when it mattered most. No doubt, the Football Association has already patted you on the back in appreciation. We are convinced that many more clubs will draw inspiration from your shining example to do the needful. Thank you. And this is signed by Mr. Odronyako, who's the administrative manager of the Ghana League Clubs Association. Okay, so big ups to the Kotoko fans. But remember, Kotoko fans, we are watching. Yeah, you are visiting at Karela, but we are watching. So the safety and security officer and PRO of Accra Great Olympics is still here with me in the studio. Let me do some more messages, and this is from Sarah Amanfol in Winneba. It says, good day, Nathaniel, and your guests. Good suggestions there, because if the other countries are doing well by spacing the seats in the stadium, why can't we do the same in our country? It's our attitude. That's why things are happening like that. Thank you very much, Sarah Amanfol in Winneba. Still here on the Joy Sports link on Joy 99.7 FM. There's this one from Godwin in North Kaneshie. It says, Nat, welcome back. Thank you very much. I take strong exception to the picking and choosing of this particular GFA and what happened to Ashanti Gold versus Kotoko. Didn't we see pictures and videos of spectators sitting in the stands and not observing social distancing? And the Kotoko tertiary group traveling with the Kotoko team to Cape Coast to do their Jama bit without social distancing? It's Hearts and Midyama, and they can't. That is it. Hearts and Midyama that they can't conveniently punish. Ghana we day. Nat, ask yourself that even in the state of our so-called national stadium, I don't even remember the last time I used washrooms at the stadium. They are in a very deplorable state, and come to think of it, they just renovated that edifice. We just joke in this country. This is from Godwin in North Kaneshie. Godwin, thank you very much for your message. Remember, it's 055 1111 997. Bright Ajabing in Koforidra has sent this one. He says, it seems like the attention is only on the spectators inside the stadium. However, which measures are put in place to ensure the people outside the stadium are also observing the safety protocols? Well, interestingly, before that game, there were queues, and I'm going to put that question to, Emmanuel Saint Osei, who's here with me in the studio. There were pictures of fans who had queued in the normal way. They had crowded there. They were, standing very close to each other and had queued. They were buying tickets to get into the stadium in that particular game between your club and Accra Hearts of Oak.
Seriously, I didn't see that because I just drive into the stadium. But like we'll be talking about since I came here. The watchword here has to do with being responsible. Each and every person must be responsible, whether you are the caretaker of the sports stadium, whether you are a spectator, whether you are whatever. You are supposed to be responsible for everything. Nat, I just want to talk about. Reiterate the point where, I don't know whether it's also in cancer or you yourself who pointed out again. Like, you see, from the gate. And even from the queue thing that you just raised, all right, measures must be put in place in checking the queue, as in how we stand to procure the ticket and what have you. Okay, so I would love that that kind of thing that the organizers, House of Folk is supposed to be punished and all of that. I'll plead that these things are suspended for now. You see, as a result of what happened, Kotoko has now taken cue and is doing the right things. All right, probably there wasn't a blueprint for one to have probably looked on, So I will plead that no matter what measure they put in punishing House of Folk, this punishment must be suspended, and then they see to what Kotoko has done. Probably all of us can emulate. We at Great Olympics don't normally have,
because Great Olympics, you also contributed to the problem that day. It is always said that the within the regulations and the books, the responsibility is placed on the home team. But your fans were seen. The videos on social media, they were seeing their Jama together.
Exactly. But the point is, you see, before
so then you also share in the blame
of the league. There wasn't any blueprint, like I said earlier on, that if the organizers were to say, okay, no Jama, no this, then you can say that you can fault Great Olympics. But in this case, these things are happening at a time where I must say Haas were caught, pants down.
You were also caught pants. Your fans were also caught pants down.
The onus now lies on the
you
home
scored
team.
Saint Osei, you scored 2 goals. Exactly. Your club scored 2 goals. The fans were together. They were celebrating. Exactly. They were hugging each other, and they were singing together.
I do understand you perfectly, but what I'm trying to say is that I'm not encouraging that, but I think that going forward, we wouldn't encourage such a thing. But the point that I want to make one more time is, having been checked at the main gates, okay, checks must be done again within the sitting, arena or area, okay, so that when people go to the stadium, they don't just sit idle. You sometimes gets up, go to Tego's place to eat something, move to other places, and they touch other surfaces, okay. So I think the using of the thermometer gun and then the sanitizer and what have you must be brought within the spectators, so that intermittently, like I said earlier on, that spectators will be given the sanitizers to use, plus washing of hands with the detergents. I want to point out the fact that the NSA still must also help. I know Charles is doing very well at the stadium, but a lot more must be done. I always want to juxtapose what one goes through if one is admitted at the ICU and what one can do to avert that. We have to look at that. How much do you spend in avoiding this COVID? So let's look at that. And like I said, and all others have said, we all have to be responsible. Whether the stadium, funerals, homes, where have you? We have to be responsible as citizens, because it is not one person's problem. It is all of us. We all have to be responsible. Let's try as much as possible to make sure, even if you're a spectator, you are coming to the stadium. Try and patch. How much down? I don't think the price is as high as before. Okay, nose marks, that one is normal. But let's try as much as possible to get the hands. Whilst watching the match, 5-10 minutes, you can just sanitize your hands because you don't know what you have touched. There are a lot of surfaces also around the stadium, that you can do. A goal is scored and you are put in a certain mood that you even forget yourself. So all these little must be looked at.
Sure. In a bit, we'll also be looking at your immediate assignment, which places a big responsibility on you to ensure that your results are consistent. Let me just quickly announce the phone line. We can squeeze in a few calls before we wrap it up here on the Joy Sports link on Joy 99.7 FM. It's 0302-216-541. 0302-216-541. Okay, so let's get down to the business of the match day. I mean, you've been impressive this season, and being second on the log is not a joke, and you have that to protect in the next game.
I must say kudos to the board, management, playing body, and supporters. All these stakeholders have contributed in a positive manner in making us get to where we are at the moment. Basically, with the playing body, I would say discipline, training, hard work has also paid off in making us get to this very position. I think one other thing that Coach Arno, which I always mention, has to do with in the during the previous seasons, what we used to do was to buy players. For instance, we've here with Nathaniel Atto. We just don't do due diligence, and then we just go in for you. Sometimes some of these players have hidden injuries, and in the course of play, these injuries tend to come up, and then the club is found wanting. There is no amount of conversation that you can come out. You can come out and then, for your supporters to understand. This time, what we did was make sure that in every position we have more than 2 players who will compete. So if you have opportunity of playing for Greater Olympics against House of Folk and you flop, it means the next match you're going to go to play. So every player is struggling and forcing to make sure that he is in the first 11 or first 18.
Okay, so there's a lot of competition within the side to secure positions. Let's get on the phone line now and speak to our first caller. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nat.
Good afternoon.
Yes, this is Joseph Inko.
Joseph, thank you for joining us, and thanks for sharing that information as well.
Yes, before anything, let me quickly send a reminder to the NSA that they should try to add a demarcation of the COVID rules at the ongoing renovation of the Baba Yara Sports Stadium, so that it will be like they finish and then they will have to go and do something again. Secondly, I remember about 2 months ago on this same network, when government had not given the 25% for supporters to be in the stadium, some pundits and scholars like myself were saying the government had no empathy for the sporting industry. But I personally came out with an argument that the GFA, the NSA, and the sports ministry needed to come out with a roadmap of what they were using to convince government to give us the go-ahead. Now, do you think if they were having something like that, like a roadmap, by now there would have been an indication or demarcation of all the various stadia? Why should we take Haas versus Olympics before we see what was going wrong before we started doing that? Now, Kotoko is being praised for doing the right thing because it took the administrative manager of Kotoko, Emmanuel Newton Dasebre, and his other management members to go on social media, advise supporters on what to do, and they have ended this. Why is it that it's not happening in Takwa? Why is it that it's not in Doma? If they were having a roadmap by now, all those demarcations would have been done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's get to our next caller. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on the Joy Sports Link.
Thank you. My name is from Kojibu.
Okay, please go ahead.
Appointed in the class because they have watched league matches from many other jurisdictions. And one would have expected that they would have put their house in order. I think many of the excuses they are giving are not tenable. Once they wanted the fans in the stadium, they should have put down a roadmap to prevent what has happened. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. 0302216541 0302216541. Of course, the next we should also be expecting will be some very interesting games. So Bechem United Great Olympics, we'll pick Saint Osei's final thoughts on that game, and of course, Karela versus Asante Kotoko is also tomorrow at 3 p.m. Ashanti Gold versus Liberty Professionals. Inter Allies versus Ebusian Dwarfs. And of course, 11 Wonders Play Dreams FC. Adriana Stars will face Wafa. And of course, we will also be bringing you all of the big updates on all of our handles in that game between Hearts of Oak and Legon City. It's another very big one to look forward to. Elmina Sharks and Brecum Chelsea face each other on Monday. And on Tuesday, King Faisal play Mediama SC. Okay, so final thoughts as we wrap it up here on expectations of the Dade Boys.
As I speak to you, the Dade Boys have arrived safely.
Mm-hmm.
And normally Bechem it's a Waterloo, but I can say on authority that this time we're going to change things. We want to break that jinx. All that we are praying for is good officiating. If there's good officiating, there's no way Great Olympics is not going to pick up the 3 maximum points.
I see.
There's no way Great Olympics is going to miss the 3 maximum points.
I see.
Yes.
This is interesting. Well, let's see how all of it turns out, and we'll see. Let's just all see how it all goes. It all goes. Okay, so that is how we will wrap it up here on the Joy Sports Link. Thank you so much for listening. Before we go, we'll say happy birthday to you, Ernest Kujo Sedemamakpa of Christian International High School in Dodowa. It's from your dad, Dr. Amakpa, and your mom, Sally. Also, happy birthday to you, Bernadette Dawson Amoa. Babette, happy blessed birthday to you. So we're dedicating this to the Oli fans. We still haven't figured out, this anthem. Lankabel sang it for us the other day, but come again.
We have an anthem. We have posted. We posted to.
Okay, we need to have the full. Yeah, okay, we'll have the full. So that we can be playing it for you. Thank you all so much once again, and the man George Quay will be coming up very shortly.